Hi, thanks for joining us today. My name is Gavin O'Meara. I'm the CEO and founder of FE News. And welcome to the season finale of Future of Apprenticeships. This is season 3 and episode 6. Today is all around collaboration. And the title is Achieving a Culture of Collaboration. And thank you for those that have joined us for all of the season. I hope you enjoyed the journey. I have. We've covered 16 to 19, SMEs, cost of living crisis, send. Last week was endpoint assessment, and today is all around collaboration. If you've joined us on all of the season so far, you'd know that Suzanne Slater has been one of my co-presenters for most of this season, actually. Suzanne, I wonder if I could bring you into the studio. Hey, Suzanne, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. It's good to be back, Gavin. I can't believe this is the season finale already. We're at episode 6, but it's been, I second you, really. It's been a really cool series. I think we've covered some really interesting topics, and I'm really looking forward to today's as well, kind of finishing off around collaboration.
It's all key to the future of apprenticeships is collaboration, really, isn't it? And I think looking at all of these different topics, we've been on a journey and didn't really realise how much of a journey we've been on when we planned it, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, we've had apprentices on. How often are apprentices not a part of the conversation when we're talking about the future of apprenticeships? We've had SMEs on, or small business. We don't want to upset Anthony. And we've also had large employers, largest employer in the UK as well.
Yeah.
Cost of living crisis. I mean, we're all experiencing that at the moment. And what does that mean for apprenticeships? And what does it mean for providers, awarding organisations, but also the apprentice and employers as well? I thought was really, really key. Sendor looking at sort of overcoming hidden barriers for neurodiversity and the whole area around endpoint assessment. Now, today we've got 2 literally brilliant guests. I'm so excited about today. And we deliberately asked for 2 different type of guests as well, actually. And I really thank you, Stuart and Neil, for joining us. So we've got Stuart Siegel. Stuart, I've known for like probably 12, 15 years. Stuart is, but I was much darker haired then and probably a bit thinner, to be fair. Stuart is chair of Youth Employment UK. He's also on the AELP board. Many of you would know Stuart as well when he was CEO of AELP as well, and took over that post just after Graham Hoyle, actually, who founded AELP. So that was, probably quite a tough shoes to go into there for Stuart, actually, after someone who founded an organisation to go in. But I know Stuart for years, and Stuart has always been around collaboration and bringing different people together. So absolutely, really, really, really key to have Stuart. Our second guest is going to be Neil Coates, who's deputy principal of London South East Colleges. London South East Colleges all have a bit of a role at the minute. AOC Apprentice of the Year for demolition, Multicultural Awards, like Employer of the Year for SMEs is the SME that they work with as well. But also the whole reason I wanted to get a representative from London South East Colleges, if we're looking at collaboration, there's been some really cool movements, like literally movements come out of London South East Colleges around good for me, good for FE. Also FE Food Bank Friday. And I think that's sort of the way that's grown and become not just a local thing, but a national thing. So I wonder if I could bring, I'll give it a bit of an intro for that. But I wonder if I could bring Stuart into the studio. Hey, Stuart, and also Neil. Hi, Neil, how are you?
Morning.
Also, to say to everyone, today we're live. It isn't a pre-record. What is happening is real. This is a real plant, for example, and we'd love for you to get involved, audience. So if you've got any questions, we'll do our very best to answer those and keep them a little bit short rather than being long, because on our side it's a bit weird when your face gets covered when there's a massive question. But I would encourage you to get involved. All you need to do is just pop it in the comments and I'll see that and try to bring that in. Suzanne, I didn't know if you wanted to kick off the session today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gav. I think I'll open up by asking Neil, really, and then, moving over to Stuart as well. But, how do you feel the sort of sector as a whole can come together more to collaborate, I suppose, more effectively when it comes to furthering the success of apprenticeships?
Yeah, I think apprenticeships, maybe more than other areas, there's great opportunities for it. Just some examples of things that we're working on at the moment is employers have got a minefield of people they can work with, products they can engage with. They're in a period of time where skills is really important right now and the future, but sometimes people have to park the future for what they need to do right now to make their business operation work. Yep. And what we're trying to do now is spend a lot of time with employers to go, well, we really understand that, but some of the work we can do with you, particularly our apprenticeships, we will help you right now. There's some fantastic examples of apprentices coming in and improving businesses, and there's lots of information and research on that. But some of the areas that we're doing more work on is working collaboratively with our university partners as well. So looking at spaces within the market where we can say, look, let's not try and offer everything for everyone. Let's offer the right thing for people. You can't, don't try and please everyone all of the time. Try and please some people some of the time is a place to be. And working with partners like that is great. So some examples at the moment is we're working with a HEI partner on going to employer. They need people to enter the market. They need people with high level skills. If they can have one relationship and one conversation, that's a benefit to them. And we can only do that through collaboration. So I think it's vital across the span. And the series you've had so far has been really exciting. I've been keeping track of things going on, but collaboration, and apprenticeships, but it leads into so many other things. Pipelines of talents into the sector, traineeship programs, sector-based work academies. It's about having that conversation with employers that isn't blinkered to one product. That's what we try to do quite a lot and bring our partners into that.
Yeah, that's and it's really interesting, that collaboration between FE and HE as well. I think, HE are still pretty new when it comes to the apprenticeship, landscape, the apprenticeship market, aren't they? And I think, that collaboration to sort of help them and support them on this journey as well, to help them to understand this, what is it, a complex system. I think is really fantastic. Stuart, what about yourself in terms of what are your thoughts on bringing this, as a sector, bringing, how we can better collaborate to kind of further success?
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say there's probably a lot more collaboration going on than people would admit to. And I think the apprenticeship program, it is one that, absolutely requires collaboration between, it tends to be a 3 or 4 way program where you've got 4 key partners: the apprentice themselves, the employer, the training provider, and the government. And unless you get some cooperation between that, this is a complex system and a complex program to deliver with many different elements. Unless you've got that collaboration, it isn't going to work well. So for me, the key is to focus on the customer, focus on who is going to get the output from this. And that's, I would put first the apprentice, then clearly the employer, and the provider has to get what it needs and the government has to get what it needs. But if you focus on that, unfortunately, I think in the current system, and probably has been for the last 2 or 3 years, the focus has tended to be around the institutions and what government wants and rules. So I think we just need to switch that round a bit, have a culture, and I think a culture of trust that enables collaboration to happen. Is it the theory X, theory Y? Do you believe that everybody in the system is out for all they can get, and therefore you have to create rules and structures around that? Or do you believe everybody is trying to deliver something great for the apprentice that will benefit the employer, and therefore let them get on and collaborate where they need to?
Yeah,
so I think switching the culture to one of trust. And we've got new government ministers. I'm very hopeful about the appointment of Robert Halfon. He's got to trust the sector to get on and collaborate.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely. I think a high trust environment is exactly what we sort of need, really, isn't it? And I think that sort of goes hand in hand with collaboration, really, isn't it? It's from, and I'm really hopeful. Rishi was interested in how to increase the amount of skills, and when he was Chancellor, was looking at apprenticeships, and then suddenly weren't not allowed to look at apprenticeships, but he was looking at apprenticeships and what does that mean? Gillian Keegan, that's the first time I've known a skills minister be an education secretary. Do you know what I mean? Surely she's got to understand what's going on. And Rob Halfon, and he's been he's still on it. So I think it's really interesting.
I think all we need to do now is ensure they stay in post longer than a month.
That would help. How do we develop more trust? And also, Yaz, you've been up there for a little bit, but yeah, hi Yaz, thanks for joining us today. Everyone, seriously, we're live. If you've got any questions, just pop them over. Everyone, I'd love to answer those for you. How do we develop a culture of high trust between each other, but also for government for us?
One of the things I was going to say, I think it's living what we say. I mean, Stuart, you mentioned Robert Held in there, so he was at the Apprenticeship Ambassador Network yesterday. I don't know if you saw on LinkedIn, he posted something really interesting about the apprenticeship ladder and stages with that as well. And one of the things, so I'm just getting got a Teams call, of course. Why would we not get a Teams call in the middle of something else? He posted about the apprenticeship ladder, and the first thing on that run was student focus. It was about careers advice, and it was about that collaboration there. So I think the biggest thing around trust, it's really easy to do a LinkedIn post. It's really easy to say what we want to do. It's like, right now, live it. Now let's actually see these things happen and collaborate to make them things happen.
Yeah, I think one big step towards that would be a lot more transparency in terms of data, where we are in the sector, sharing more information. But you're absolutely right. It has to be evidence-based, isn't it? I mean, there's lots of, I'm sure we'll touch on it, things like subcontracting, lots of themes that come through the sector that say, subcontracting is bad, it's high risk. Well, I've never seen any evidence to say that's the case. I can think of some really high profile cases where subcontracting didn't go right. There's also some high profile cases where things didn't go right, but there's no subcontracting. I don't think subcontracting per se, for example, I'm just using that, it is bad. And that's the sort of thing we need to absolutely, we can't be trusted just for the sake of being trusted. We've got to show the evidence that says the trust will build, but that's got to be the direction of travel. And as I come back to this theory X, theory Y, if you assume everybody's going to be doing bad things, it's really difficult to build trust. Yeah. And I think that people in post now, we've got an opportunity to start to prove that the collaboration will work.
Yeah, I really agree on the subcontracting point, Stuart. We don't call our subcontractors, we call them partners. It's the partners that we work with on the delivery. And I go back to my point is you can't do everything for everyone all the time. You can't be the expert in everything. And actually we work with our partners to deliver them really specialist skills to make sure the product is outstanding. And I think we need to recognise we should be looking to be a sector. And I think there was a point about how do you collaborate and compete. And that's really vital. We have to be working as a sector to get the outcomes for the apprentices, because that's the important thing. That's the skills, that's the lifeblood of the future. And the barriers around things like subcontracting and partnerships is a challenge for us to do that in practice.
Yeah, no, definitely. So that was, you jumped on my question. How do we collaborate, but also we're in a competitive environment? How do you collaborate and compete at the same time and have that element of trust?
I've always I have struggled with that issue. And my time in ALP, people were quite suspicious of any collaboration that I either initiated or were part of, because they start from that mindset that says someone else is out to eat my lunch. That sort of phraseology, for example, from ministers was never.
Yeah, that didn't help much. No.
And that made such a difference when a minister, who actually I thought was a good minister, I can't even remember his name now. There's been so many.
Was it Wolsey? It might have been.
No, it was anyway. It was.
Or was he in the jungle? One or the other.
It was in time. It was the skills minister in Hancock's son. I can't remember his name. He was great, but someone had written in his speech, you've got to be careful. Colleges, independent trained advisor eating. That just set us back a year. So we need to hit. It's interesting that Neil picked up comments from yesterday. They are really important that they start to give those messages. So that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see our policymakers start to incorporate the views of the providers, the employers, the apprentices themselves into some of those policies, and to start to set the direction. I'm not saying release all of the rules tomorrow, allow all subcontracting at all times, but to really look at the detail and look at the evidence of stuff like subcontracting, which creates barriers to actually collaborate whilst we're competing. Everybody accepts that we're going to compete, and that's a good thing. But I think if you focus on the results for the apprentices and the results for the employers, you're sort of forced to collaborate where it works.
Yeah, no, definitely. We're now in. If we've got the Chancellor mentioning the word recession almost at the very top of the autumn statement, the third fiscal review in as many months, but we're now in recession, and looking at the immediate sort of future of apprenticeships, sort of thinking of the season, that would make you think soon, as sort of history sort of told us, there'll be more people going into employability programs, so like stepping into the sort of the world of DWP, and then how do we then help them progress into into sustainable careers and jobs, which would then mean how can we be joined up with what could be more employability programs, but also then more into apprenticeships, or it could be other programs, boot camps, or it could be anything really that's going to help people be able to progress and be able to get out of situations that they're in. But like you were saying around subcontracting is okay in the eyes of DWP, but in DFE funded sort of models is not. How can we be joined up with what could be the short to medium term of what we've got with a recession? Hopefully it's a shallow one, which they're talking about, but if it's a deep one, which everyone probably suspects it's going to be, how can we be more joined up with helping the learner at the end of the day? Like your focus, you saying, Stuart, around who do we focus on? Is it the institution or the learner? How can we be joined up if we're looking at multi-sector sort of programs and looking at the future of apprenticeships, really?
I mean, some of the example that I'd put on that is that there's some of the funding is there already. It's about making people innovate with what we've got. So an example of that at the moment is we're working really closely with the Met Police on supporting the sort of like diversity of applications to go into the Met. And the challenge they had with that is when they try and go to that diverse network is some of the English skills of these people weren't hitting the requirements to go into what was either a degree, apprenticeship, or degree, which is the only route into police. So we sat down with them and designed a program, really simple. It was about English functional skills and how do you upskill people to give them skills. So we're not talking, this isn't rocket science innovation, but we had to convince them as an employer we weren't going to charge them for that. They couldn't believe that it was free. They couldn't believe this was there as an option. So some of that collaboration is working with employers to say, look, there is opportunities, there is work that we can do. And actually, this isn't going to go into your CPD budget. This isn't going to cost you loads of money. There's funding opportunities out there. But it's until you have them conversations, and again, it goes a little bit back to trust that this is going to work. That's the place that we need to get, and then working really closely with DWP on developing them pipelines. It's just that working a little bit outside the box, not really outside the box. Some of it's within the envelope you've got.
Definitely. I totally agree, and I think if we do move into a recession, I mean, I can't see that the NHS, the warehousing sector are going to be flush with labour. You know what I mean? Whatever happens to the economy, we've built ourselves an issue in the NHS for whatever reason, politically, of not having enough people to fill those posts. Apprenticeship must and is a fantastic route to make those progressions. But I do think we need to look at a couple of things. One is the difference in funding between young people and people entering the market rather than an established individual. And because of the simplification issues, they sort of remove some of that from the system. Some of those incentives that we used to have that meant you'd look at young people, you'd look at entry to the market, and inevitably that forces you to look at the links between both the traineeship programs run by DFE but increasingly the programs run by DWP. If we could get those two departments to talk to each other, that would be great. And maybe one day someone's going to think about having a skills department that manages the whole lot. That would be the ideal. That's not going to happen certainly not the next 2 years. So we just have to look at the links between the various programs. Now, I do believe, and I've always said this, that probably there's more to be done between the people delivering those programs than the government departments, waiting for the government departments to make those links. So I think even in just the independents and colleges as well, who do deliver some of those entry programs, you've almost got two sets of training providers. One set are delivering for DWP and one set, and even some of the training providers who are delivering both have different departments. So there's a lot we can do about making sure that we've got an effective transition between programs that bring in people into the workplace and apprenticeships. I don't think it's good at the moment. And I do think we should look at some of the funding within the apprenticeship program about shifting the focus of funding towards young people and those at a disadvantage, because inevitably a recession will hit those groups harder. You know, I chair YE UK. Young people suffered most in the pandemic and will suffer most in the recession, as will those who have some disabilities. And I'm not looking at a complete change of the apprenticeship program, but if the apprenticeship funding should reflect the cost of delivery, there's clearly a higher cost for young people. There's clearly a higher cost for people with disabilities. And looking at the figures, the amount spent on those supporting disabilities is going down whilst the pandemic happened and the recession's happening. So we do need to have a look at that. And I think the sector could do an awful lot to inform. So however good Robert Halfon is, he just won't get that message from his own department, for sure.
Yeah,
100%.
I agree completely. And I think investing in young people now will benefit our economy for years to come. You know, so, you know, there's huge benefits in doing that.
And save us lots of money.
Yeah.
We won't have to support them out of work, which is what we've
absolutely.
Yeah, the fact that we've got a funding system that an apprentice doing exactly the same qualification as a functional skills person, the standalone, gets, you know, nearly half the money to do that is absolutely dumbfounding. If anything, it's harder to do it as part of that apprenticeship program. It should be funded by more, which is nuts. I think the other thing you said, Stuart, there about having a joint skills team. There's not one conversation I had with an employer around recruitment that doesn't link to skills, and the fact that we've got a department that really funding and skills is one place and jobs is another. That it's one conversation, hand in hand.
Well, and Rishi Sunak's big program Kickstart, was run by the DWP and never touched, and it sort of replaced traineeships on the way through. Some would say damaged apprenticeship because people decided to go Kickstart. And there was no conversation about it because it's two different departments. And they were, he was very focused on getting his targets. So the department becomes very focused on, but we shouldn't forget Rishi Sunak. He was, in some ways, he was very good during Kickstart, although too focused on his one single program. But he's seen it. He's seen the benefits of that. I've watched his webinars. He's very good on a one-to-one basis and he understands it. He gets it. So we shouldn't forget that he's responsible for all of it.
Yeah, definitely.
And we the sector, need to keep making those links between DWP programs and entry into apprenticeships.
We dealt with them quite closely at Treasury. Everyone before you say that, if only Treasury are in the room, to be honest with you, they really, really did pull together like DWP and DFE, and it was that linchpin of Treasury doing that. I've really got hope, but then again, I always do. Sports Spurs, it goes hand in hand, really. Can we talk about, Neil? One of the main reasons I want to bring you into the show was around collaboration and looking at movements. So I think it's brilliant we've touched on trust, because I think trust is key. Do you know what I mean? And living it, not just talking about it, living it. But good for me, good for FE. Started with your college. FE Food Bank Friday, I believe, started with your college as well. And that's become a national movement. And I know very quickly, good for me, good for FE, then brought in 2 other colleges in different parts of the country. How can we learn from that? Because the progression of both of those moves, it's been a movement. It's been really interesting to me, and I think to the whole sector. I've not really seen anything like that before. What can we learn from that? Because you're living it. Do you know what I mean? And you've obviously seen it from the ground up and the idea of it. What can we learn from that around sort of looking at collaboration in general, basically across the sector?
Yeah, I think it's definitely collaboration. It weren't us on our own by any means that did that, because it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work if you try and do something like that on your own. it's too insular. I think having inspirational leaders in doing that is really important, and developing them skills in people. I mean, we've got a principal and CEO that is well connected and always looks as the college as we had a social enterprise strategy. That's what we're all about. And how can we be more than a college? How can we be fantastic neighbours in the communities we're in? How can we bring social wealth? How can we engage with there being community anchors? All of these big things, and it's about living it. So, I said before about it's all well and good writing about it and say what you've got to do, but you've got to actually do it. It's like chicken and egg, which come first. Was it the food bank? Good for FE. So really, it was the food bank stuff that we started to grow, and then through lockdown become bigger, and then obviously the good for me, good for FE come out of going, well, there's more than this. There's so many values. There's how can we give time in volunteering? How can we work collaboratively? How can we do our bit? But then actually, if we do look at it as a whole, the impact of it is massive. There's this one thing I was just going to bring on the screen quickly, Gavin, which was just that share screen, just to show people quickly. There we go. So just a visual representation. So this is good for me, good for FE. There's a website for it. You can go on, and it talks about all sorts of things in here. But I wanted to bring up this page that it started with us having a conversation with two of the colleges. There's now 130 people, and I just wanted to bring this up as a visual representation of how an idea and a joint belief has turned into something massive. And just by everyone being involved in that conversation and involved in that shared vision will have a huge impact. So there's so many names I'm just flicking through on there. I think that's it there, Gavin. It was just a visual view of it. I think it's massive, and doing collaboration for that. Our food bank work, again, started with a germ of idea that actually people are in real poverty and need them opportunities, and we need to support with that. So some examples of our food bank thing starts with just literally it was in the week, drop some food off every Friday, we'll collect it and take it on. That's where the Food Bank Friday thing comes from. It's now turned into a huge other point. So at Christmas, we do a big Christmas hamper program. So it goes out to all the students. We say to them, we're going to do a competition. You'll get a box, put things in, decorate the box, make it nice. We thought everyone in our students are these people that are accessing these food banks. We weren't sure how it was going to go. The response has been overwhelming. Absolutely overwhelming. We did it our first time at our Greenwich campus around this, and we walked into the room and there was literally a sea of food and boxes and parcels. And so we do a thing where we do a little competition for the best dressed one. But the magic is then putting that in a van and taking it to the food banks, and then that going out and being given to people is just phenomenal. And it's just that little bit extra, it's doing that little bit more. And you think, oh, what's that to do with a college, or what's that? But it's everything. We can't just be about skills and just about education. It's being part of that community and supporting it, and that will impact. If someone's got a food and they've got breakfast and they have some food in their belly, they're going to learn, they're going to work better. There's so many wider impacts on all of this work that we're doing collaboratively.
Yeah, no, definitely. What can we learn from that for looking at apprenticeships? So, like, Stuart, you made a point earlier around focus on the customer. Do you know what I mean? And also trust, and actually working together. What can we learn from going from 1 then to 3 colleges very quickly to being 100 and how many did you say?
130 partners at the moment.
130. Yeah. So wouldn't that be amazing to be able to have something like that? For apprenticeships, where we can have 130 different providers all working together, not just colleges, but also training providers as well. Do you know what I mean? What can we do to make that happen?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's fair to say, I did start with a comment that says there's a lot more collaboration than we think. The organisation, AOC, AELP, quite recently announced a joint approach to a number of key issues, because as we say, collaboration and competitive, we all know we're competitive. I think, by the way, that all the rules should be set so that they're the same rules for all organisations, but that's another different issue. That doesn't help the collaborative nature of it. But I think those organisations, AOC, AELP, can work together more. I think we'd all accept that. And work with those organisations working within the DWP sector. So we need to come together, and it's a great example of where something can take off, but it's ground up. No one forced that collaboration on anybody.
Yeah.
So there's lots of examples of collaboration falling by the wayside, and I think it's not a zero if you try and force collaboration, it's a negative, and it'll always fail, and you take a step back. So we've got to allow those key issues that people feel that they can collaborate on. It won't impede on any competitiveness, but I do think we can and should work right across the sector with employers. There's now a number of organisations supporting young people, including YUK, get them involved on issues where we all feel we can make a difference. And that's what, South London, and it's no surprise that, Sam Harrott, who's the principal, sat on the ALP board for some time, because she welcomes that sort of collaboration.
Yeah, that's cool. We're out of time, everyone. I had so many other questions I wanted to ask you, but we're completely out of time. I want to ask you one last thing. If you could dream and dream big, future of apprenticeships and collaboration, what would you want to see? Stuart, what would you want to have if you could dream big on collaboration?
I'd want to see one single government department managing the whole of skills, and I'd like to see one sector organisation supporting all of the training provision within that. Coming together. That doesn't mean to say you've got to get rid of AOC and ALP, but one single organisation working much more closely and working together for the sector.
Yeah, no, cool. Neil, what would you want to see?
Yeah, I massively echo that on the dreaming big stuff. I mean, this bit I'm going to say maybe doesn't feel too big, but it's huge. It's about how can we do more on that last bit around working collaboratively and endpoint assessment, and having them environments to be able to do this stuff. Not the EPAs, not the EPOs. The actual environment where apprentices can take their endpoint assessment, particularly within construction trades, is a real challenge, a huge delay. Again, going all the way back to the apprentices is vital for them. If they haven't got the centre, they're the ones that are impacted by this. So just the same way we've got to find an apprenticeship and find an EPAO, I think we need more collaboration around actually environments to do that EPA.
I was going to ask you about this, but we run out of time. But Neil, really quickly, can you explain about your groundworks challenge that you had?
Yeah, no, we had a situation where we worked for an EPAO. They were set, fine, they're going to do it. They're at the centre. We come to Gateway, said we need to book them in now, and they said, "Oh, sorry, we can't do it now. We haven't got the assessors and the environment." That's a killer, and obviously that's our fault. Everyone looks at that's our fault as a college, irrespective of what's gone wrong. So we very quickly then had to, invest money in year, and everyone knows budgets in year are a problem. Trying to find 20 grand to dig metre-foot trenches and build walls and everything like that is a real challenge, but that's what we've done to put our own environment in. Apprenticeships, exams, particularly construction, physical environments. It's not a paper that you can put in a cupboard, and finding space within colleges and grants to do that's a challenge. But we did it, and we've got that in place for our groundworks. But that's what I'm saying. We could now then go to other providers. We've got a groundworks EPA centre that you can come and bring your apprentices to and do your endpoint assessment. I think it might not sound big. That's pretty huge. I think just trying to collaborate and doing something like that in the sector, but it'd be great to see.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm sorry we didn't have more time to unpack that a bit more. Suzanne, what would you want to see if you could see one thing for the future of collaboration and future of apprenticeships?
I think I would definitely just echo what Stuart and Neil have said. Really, I think collaboration is about. I would certainly, having worked sort of on the other side within FE colleges and also within private training providers, I'd like to see those two kind of types of organisations working closer together.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think it'll benefit employers. I think it'll help us reach more apprentices in those kind of far-reaching areas of the UK. I think by doing that, and we can offer those apprentices the opportunities that they want instead of them being restricted to what that provider or college might offer. I think by collaborating, it'll open up a lot more opportunities.
Definitely. We're out of time. We're over time, so I'm sorry, everyone. But there's so many more things I want to say. I think the one thing for me, if I was to answer, what would I want to see? And I think it's touched right at the beginning: trust. I think it seems like a little thing, but it's huge. And I think it's trust by government in the sector to be able to deliver. I think we need to sort ourselves out that we all work together more and trust each other. Why would they trust us if we don't trust each other? And I think there's a massive area around different ways that we can collaborate. And I think if we could put the apprentice is the centre of all of this, then surely there'll be even more trust from employers, be more trust from government, and we can show more and more impact. thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the season finale. I've really loved it, and I hope that you've enjoyed each one of the episodes. You can catch them on catch up if you want to and stuff like that. We've had 6 wonderful episodes, but this is time to also say thank yous. Totally co-produced between NCFE and FE News. Suzanne, thank you for joining me for 4 out of the co-hosting sort of sessions. Neil and Stuart, thank you for joining us today. Really, really cool insights. And you're right, trust is key for all of this. It's really, really cool. Team NCFE, thank you. Thank you to Sam, to Lindsay, to Elliot. Worked really hard to put this all together. Team FE News, Finley, thank you. Danielle, thank you. Holly, thank you. Everything's been put together with this season from FE News side, from 3 apprentices to talk about the future for apprenticeships. There you go. There's 3 in there for you. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you really enjoyed the whole season, and we'll see you in 2023. Merry Christmas. Is that too early to say that? I don't know. But I'll see you next year for a new season. See you later. Bye-bye.